Hello, my sober lovelies. Before we dive in, I'm really excited to announce my group coaching program for women is live, and you can join now. So excited for this because let's be real here. Quitting drinking isn't just about saying no to the glass of wine or booze. It's about what comes after. All the fear, the boredom, the late night anxiety, and the stories you've been telling yourself for years. And that's where my Rewired Sober group coaching program for women comes in. It's only $247. I'm being totally transparent on the price. It's for 3 months, and you'll learn how to shift your mindset, build habits that actually stick, and question the core beliefs that have been keeping you stuck, and find healthier ways to deal with that loneliness and that now what feeling. The best part is you don't have to do it alone. We'll have live group coaching sessions weekly, and there'll be a bunch of women walking through it with you. It's not another cookie cutter sobriety program for mommy vloggers. It's neuroscience meets real life, and it's designed for women to help you not just stay sober, but actually feel good living sober. You can join anytime, and I'd love to see you on the inside. So start today, get instant access. The link's in the show notes. Hey there, and welcome to You've Been Selected. I'm your host, Kate Vitella, and something tells me you didn't just stumble across this podcast by accident. Maybe, just maybe, you've been called here, like selected by the universe for something more. So let's get started. All right, my beautiful, chaotic creatures of recovery. Today, we're tackling a topic that feels sort of like running a marathon in flip-flops. How to stay sober when your partner is still drinking. Buckle up, folks, because I think we're about to slice through the nonsense with some hard truth. And I'm going to try to make this funny as usual, but there's going to be a tiny bit of righteous indignation here, and that's okay. That is okay. So the reason I'm talking about this today is because I've been asked so many times how I did it, and Kate, how'd you do it? No, not like that. Like, how the hell did you stay sober when your husband was still at the bars and drinking? And I still get asked this to this day with coaching clients. Like, how am I supposed to do this? My partner is still drinking. My partner is ruining it for me. My partner is causing me to relapse. My partner is sabotaging me. I hear this all the time. And I wanted to say that my husband did not get sober until I was 4 years sober. Now, one, I'm very fortunate that he finally did get sober. However, I went 4 years of my own journey to sobriety on my own. So I went through this horse manure, and let me tell you, it was another level of fuckery to contend with, stacked upon what can be the hell of early sobriety. So I think it's important we talk about this because relationship dynamics are mega. They are mega impactful on your journey. And I don't want to discredit how impactful it is when you have a partner that is still drinking. It's super hard. So often I tell clients, you're going to stay laser focused on your own recovery. That is going to be your survival mechanism in the early days. First things first, your sobriety is about you, not your partner, not their drinking habits, not their feelings about you suddenly transforming into a beacon of health and wisdom. This is about you keeping your side of the street clean. Essentially, like you're staying in your lane here and locking in on your own recovery, like with the focus of a Navy SEAL on a mission. I want you to stay laser focused on your own recovery, like tunnel vision, baby. It's not selfish, it's survival. And I'm here to tell you, every Friday and Saturday night when I was first getting sober, for probably the first couple of years of my sobriety, I went to a speaker meeting at the local Alano Club. It's a club, free club for AA. And I went because the meetings started at like 8 p.m. on a Friday night. So that was like my dress up and go out night because my husband was at the bar. Friday night came around and he was like, "Hey, I'm going out. I'm going to go have a beer here and there with a neighbor or a friend, or I'm going to meet so and so for a beer." It was always his thing. And I would say, "Yeah, okay, fine. I've got somewhere I need to be too." And I would go to this meeting. That was my time. I made my friends there. That was my circle. And if you can't get out of the house to go to a meeting, you can always go online to something. Now there online options for meetings. There's Sober Mom Squad, there's the Luckiest Club, and these online groups are just a couple to name off the top of my head, and they have meetings several times a day, 7 days a week. So there's no reason why that you wouldn't be able to join a Friday night meeting. And like I said, it's okay to be selfish during this time. Like, really, it's okay. Sobriety demands a level of selfishness in the beginning. Remember, you're saving your own life here. And society loves to demonize, especially if you've spent your life people pleasing and co signing on your own destruction. It loves to demonize selfishness. But here's the deal: selfish doesn't mean being an asshole, it just means putting your own oxygen mask on first. Your recovery has to come first, period. No asterisks, no fine print, no apologies. And I remember in early sobriety, I was listening to Holly Whitaker's Quit Like a Woman on repeat at the audiobook. And she would say, if you're a mom, just stop folding that laundry and not really ignore your kids, but, she kind of made it sound easier than it was. And I think I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't include what it's like to be momming really hard or wifing during this time. These are little people. They can't change their own butt. They can't make their own food. They need you. So it's not as simple as saying ignore your family. That's not what I'm saying. And I understand that you got to fold that laundry sometimes and you got to be there to be there for your family. But you do have to remember that your first priority is getting sober and staying sober, because you're not going to help your family if you're still drinking. And to that end, there is a bit of codependency we have to drop here. Um, and this is going to be a little bit tricky. So examine the ways that you are codependent, because I'm sorry, but you probably are. If your happiness hinges on your partner's mood or your partner's approval or your family's approval or your drinking status, we've got a codependency situation on our hands. Like, sobriety is the prime opportunity to take a long, hard look at the ways you've been outsourcing your self-worth, to get real with yourself here. So if you rely on your household to tell you that you're doing good, you are good, you're on the right path, if you rely on your family to clap for you, you're going to have to get real with yourself here. Spend some time with a coach or in therapy and journaling and support groups, or do whatever it takes, because I'm here to tell you, if you are waiting for your partner to give you permission to thrive in this journey, you will be waiting for a very damn long time. And I'm going to say this over and over and over. I get it. I totally get it. Your partner's validation is important to you. I get it. But it can't be your fuel to recovery. You want your partner to be your biggest cheerleader, to clap for you every time that you say no to alcohol, but the hard truth is they might not. And that has to be okay. So you kind of have to stop looking for gold stars from someone who, let's be honest, is probably feeling pretty salty about losing their drinking buddy. And their frustration isn't yours to carry. So there's several reasons why it might be, difficult for your partner to accept this. And in an episode I recorded with my husband, I had him go into all the reasons why. Honestly, when I stopped drinking, he started drinking more because he had all this pent-up frustration with me and so much resentment. And I think he kind of felt like when I was on my sober journey, at least I was one less thing he had to worry about, and he could finally cut loose. There were times when I felt like he was drinking at me, like revenge, and, that was really hard. I really had to separate those behaviors from my recovery and understand that he was probably going through his own little level of hell. You know, the other piece here is that your partner most likely doesn't understand addiction. And that's very frustrating. And I talk about this so much to clients. Your loved ones, your family members, your parents, whoever it is, give them a little bit of grace here that they don't understand the nuances of addiction recovery. I mean, spoiler alert here, unless your partner has battled addiction themselves, they're never going to fully get it. They don't understand why you can't just have one, right? They don't know what it's like to have your brain hijacked by craving. And the other thing is your partner might be terrified that sobriety will make you outgrow them. They might be terrified that you will change and that, there's a very real fear that your relationship, even your sex life, is gonna change. Because guess what? It will. It will change. And you're both gonna be in a weird sort of emotional standoff. So it's important to acknowledge that there's those fears there, but don't let it pull you off the course. And again, I don't want you to get stuck in a codependent loop here, but I do want you to acknowledge that your partner just lost their drinking buddy, and they might not fully believe that you're going to be thrilled to be with them or thrilled to be momming really hard or dadding really hard or whatever, sober. Your partner may think you were easier to take advantage of when you were drinking. And I don't mean sexually, although I kind of do. They may mean, they may be frustrated with the fact that suddenly you're standing up for yourself. Suddenly you have all these new hobbies, including going to meetings 24/7. All of that is throwing them way off course. So I try to remind people to stay compassionate to their partner, even though this is a very frustrating experience. I hear you on this. I wanted to punch my husband in the face every Friday night. And then he would come home drunk. And in my head, I thought, you know, as a person who rode my ass hard to quit drinking, I am in disbelief that you are going to the bar while I am going to an AA meeting. But after I sat with it a while, I was able to separate it and say, you know what? That's on him. That's not on me. That's his demons to work out. That's his frustration, his resentment. One day he's going to look back on this and regret giving me such a hard time, or he's going to look back on this and regret the decisions he made in my early recovery. And let me tell you, he does. So I really encourage people, remember the acronym LOVE, to let others voluntarily evolve. Because just like nobody could make you get sober, you can't make your partner clap for you that you're not drinking. You cannot make your partner see it your way, understand your journey. We understand our own pain so well. We know the depths and intricacies of our own pain, but we have a hard time seeing it from other people's perspective. So remember to love. You really do have to let your partner evolve in this process on their own. Let them come across, information about sobriety. Let them ask you questions when they're ready. I can remember coming home from AA meetings in the beginning and my husband was not hearing it. He didn't want to hear the story about the jaywalker who kept walking into the street and every single time he got injured and he lost an arm and a leg and etc. But he kept doing it. He kept jaywalking. I mean, how that correlates with how we keep going back to drinking, even though all the consequences. I was on fire for recovery in the beginning. My husband was not hearing it. And for whatever reason, right? I didn't know at the time. Was it because he resented me? Was it because he secretly felt bad about his own drinking? That's another thing is that your friends and family around you are gonna have to take a good hard look at their own drinking when you get sober, and that is very unsettling. You have a role in your family. You have a place, and maybe that place is that you are the scapegoat. Maybe your family is thrilled to blame you for everything, and it offsets their bullshit. And that's gonna be upsetting for your family. It's gonna be very destabilizing. That means that everyone's gonna have to reexamine where they fit. And I'll never forget when I was in outpatient therapy, over and over again, I lamented to my counselor, my family doesn't have a problem drinking. They don't have a problem with alcohol. They should be able to drink around me. Like I defended them. And she would say, if your family doesn't have a problem with drinking, then they shouldn't have a problem with not drinking in your presence. And that hit me hard, but it also made me think about the roles I had been playing in my family. I had been the sleazy aunt, the irresponsible aunt. My sisters had littles. I had been the wild aunt, the aunt with new boyfriends all the time. I had been the daughter that was in trouble a lot, that overspent and overshopped and overdid it. I was the daughter that was constantly bringing home a new boyfriend and explaining why I had a new job, or, telling my drunken debauchery stories. And that was that place I was in the family. I was that granddaughter, I was that friend that was the wild one. And so when I got sober and I started talking about personal development and addiction, and I was really in it, my family didn't want to hear it at first. They were they were like, "Yeah, right, whatever." I mean, for a variety of reasons. Not only is it upsetting because that changes my role in the family, but like I said, it makes them look at themselves. And also, you have to remember, just because you say this time you're gonna get sober, it doesn't mean after 30 days that you've undone all that crap you did in the past, right? You need to live it. You need to make living amends. That means one day at a time, you're getting up and proving to people in your lives. You know, I I work with clients and we talk about how they've been sober for 6 months and their family hasn't forgiven them yet. I get it. I was there. And I was so mad at my family. I was like, "Who the fuck do you guys think you guys are?" But I drank heavily for like 15 years, and I ruined a lot of family Christmases, and I let people down, and I scared the shit out of them. So how could I think that in 6 months of me saying I've changed my ways, they would forget and forgive? And the same thing with my husband. I had to remind myself, and my AA sponsors and then my coaches and my mentors along the way reminded me, look, you were a mess in your marriage. You were not a good wife, good stepmom, good partner, and your husband doesn't trust you anymore. And rightly so. So it's going to take some time, because I did some really shitty things while I was drinking. So it will take some time for him to trust you again, and it did, and things eventually ironed out. After a year or so of sobriety, after proving myself over and over and over, you know, I'll show up when I say I'm gonna show up. I will be there, I will commit, and I will make it. I will do what I say I'm gonna do. I will turn down the alcohol. I will not show up intoxicated, proving over and over and over again. After a while, he was finally able to trust me. And again, he was fighting his own battles during that time. And I'm guessing that your loved one or partner is fighting their own battles too. Um, I also tell clients, like, have your family members or your partner read Sobriety for Dummies. And I'm serious here. It's part of the Dummies series, like Learning French for Dummies or Computers for Dummies or whatever. A couple of friends of mine, um, Tamar Medford and Lane Kennedy, they wrote the book Sobriety for Dummies, and they both have long-term recovery. And the point of it is that you can hand this to anyone, and it is engaging, it is funny, it is actually very smart and educating, and it really helps them understand what you're going through. If your partner's clueless about what you're going through, hand them the book. Educate them without turning it into, like, your full-time job, you know? So you can set the expectation that they at least need to meet you halfway here in understanding what you're going through. And if they refuse, well, that tells you something important, you know? Um, and set boundaries here. Don't be afraid to state your needs. Your sobriety is sacred. And that means setting boundaries like your life freaking depends on it. Like, I'm not going to go to that event. I can't be at that restaurant. That's very triggering. I'm not going to go to your parents for Christmas because they do shots at 7 in the morning. Like, make it clear what you need and what you won't tolerate here. That old adage, like we teach people how to treat us. And we have to reteach people. Once we get sober and we have these new rules for ourselves, these new ways of moving through the world, we can't expect people to read our mind. We have to teach them. We have to teach them that, hey, look, I'm a person now that has some self respect. I'm not going to end up face down in the ditch. So, because I respect myself, like, I kind of expect you to too. That was a mouthful. I'm like, sucker and succotash. So just basically, like, don't waste your breath trying to, like, explain in detail all your triggers to someone who doesn't wanna hear it. And I say this all the time too, like, choose safe recovery spaces. In meetings, we can share the grit and the grime and the icky and the hard and the very vulnerable parts of recovery. But we can't often share those in places where, other people aren't in recovery. So you kind of need to choose where you're vulnerable, where you're going to open up and provide all that information, because you kind of have to know that, like, people around you don't get it. They're not ready to hear that, right? They're not ready to hear that. So, protect your peace, right? Protect your peace and be really mindful of where you're telling your stories. There's gonna be a time when people aren't ready, nor have they earned the right to have access to that information about you, because they're probably going to turn it against you or, abuse that information. I remember, I was open about recovery in the beginning, but I was not open about going through the monitoring program for nurses because that was another level of vulnerability. People had to really earn my trust before I was willing to go there. Like, I'm okay talking about, yes, I gave up alcohol. I'm sober now. And I'm even okay talking about getting a DUI. But there are particular places where I am not okay talking about how this impacted my career because I still had to make sure I was in a safe place, whereas it wasn't going to be weaponized. And you will very quickly learn those places for yourself. You know, Not only that, but sharing in those recovery circles with people who get it, like, they've earned your trust. They've earned your vulnerability and your respect. And those are the people that are going to help you through it, not the people in the cheap seats on the other side. So, it's funny, and we say in recovery spaces too, like, these are your people. Bring your shit here. Don't bring it to people who don't get it because you're going to be met with a lot of disappointment, right? If you're waiting for the people in your life to clap for you that you got sober, you're going to be waiting for a very long time. Like, no one's bringing you a fucking casserole. We talk about this as well. You quit drinking? Guess what? There's no parade. No one's showing up at your door with a hot dish and a Hallmark card that says, congrats, you didn't destroy your life today. It's unfair, I get it, but that's the reality of it. And we have to accept that. So, just like I talked about not being codependent on other people's validations, you also have to figure out ways to celebrate your own wins and to nurture and take care of yourself through this journey. They say mother yourself, pour yourself a hot bath, buy yourself a little treat for your sober milestone because no one's bringing you a casserole. This is not like cancer. People do not feel sorry for you. They blame it on you. They think it's your fault and that you could have quit any time and you're a piece of shit. And not everybody thinks that, right? There are awesome people in your life who are going to be like, wow, this is so hard. I am so proud of you. And those are awesome people, and hang on to them for dear life because not many people are gonna be like that. And that's the society that we live in. We still heavily stigmatize addiction and recovery. I mean, we stigmatize recovery. Yes, I said that correctly. Like when someone says I'm in recovery or I had to quit drinking or I'm going to meetings, it's like, ooh, what did you do? Or how bad did you get? So this has to be an area of your life where you build your own narrative and you learn to celebrate yourself and sort of like be your own best friend here. Super cheesy, I know. Like, hand me a slice of cheese for saying that. But I will say it over and over again. Like, you kind of have to be your own bestie. You have to tell yourself, like, wow, I can't believe I made it to 90 days sober. That's so awesome. Or like me, I put myself on a plane to go to New York for my soberversary. And I did that 4 years in a row when my husband was at home drinking. And I was like, F off. I'm spending the money. I'm going to New York. I'm worth it. Because do you know how hard it is to get sober and stay sober when you're like me? I mean, every sober day is a damn miracle. And, the world's not going to throw confetti at your feet. And they're just not. But you can't let that take you out. And I won't let that be an excuse for you. Like, if I'm listening to you talk about how, well, all my friends started drinking, so of course I did. Or, my family, they ruined it for me. They ruined my sobriety because they poured the eggnog. And I just felt like, well, they're sabotaging me. I guess I better take a shot. Like, I'm not trying to hear that. You're in control. No one gets to take your sobriety from you. No one gets to have this. This is yours. So you can't say, well, other people sabotaged you or other people drank around you or they made it very hard for you. What am I saying? You can say whatever you want. You can say that, but I'm here to tell you, you're probably going to be hiding behind some excuses because eventually you're going to learn that your sobriety is yours. That is yours alone. You earned it. You fiercely protect that going forward. This path isn't easy, but it's worth it. But you got to keep your eyes on your own damn paper, right? And hold your sobriety close. This isn't a time in your life when you can blame it on others sabotaging you. If I would have went back and looked at the fact that my husband was kind of sabotaging me in the beginning, then I would have used that as another excuse to relapse again and again and again. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I did. I'm not accusing other people of doing it as much as I'm saying I did that. There were so many times I went back to drinking and blamed the people around me. Well, my ex-boyfriend just took me to my favorite bar. Well, my girlfriends just cracked that bottle of wine. They don't care about me. So I was like, well, of course I have to have some. You know, I kind of went down that road several times until I realized, oh, wow, nobody cares about this as much as I do. This sobriety is mine. I have to protect it. And again, like, no one's bringing me a fucking casserole because I'm getting sober. So you got to hold tight here. This is very ranty. I have really just ranted up one side and down the other. You can tell I get really passionate about this, but please remember, you've been selected for this journey because you are a badass. Now go live it unapologetically. Just remember to love. Let others voluntarily evolve. Thanks for tuning in. You can find me on my website at katevitella.com. You can also connect with me on Instagram at katevitella. I would love to hear from you. Any feedback or questions, shoot me a note. So until next time, peace within and bullshit out.